Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another SHOUTCraft Clan War right here on MLG TV. My name is TotalBiscuit, and I'm joined by an illustrious co-caster today in the form of Complexity Qxc.
Hey, I'm here, I'm ready, and I'm excited.
It's a good lineup today, isn't it? It's actually going to be, I think, one of our closer Clan Wars so far.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see how much preparation Millenium has done. We saw in the past that EG is ready to take that 2v2 by the throat. We'll have to see if Millenium is up to the challenge.
I would hope that they're able to. I think they're capable. They've got a good lineup. They've got a good solid lineup, and I think they got a little bit lucky as well, actually. They managed to put their ace player up against EG's ace player in the fourth map. We've got Jadong versus 4GG, which I think is going to be a really good matchup in and of itself.
Yeah, that's probably the matchup that I'm most excited for, but I think all around the matches look pretty even. There aren't very many games here that there's a clear favorite in, which should make for some interesting games, and we do have some of the fantastically interesting maps that this clan war is well known for.
Yeah, the maps are going to be rather intriguing. I mean, we're going to start off with a 2v2, which is about as ridiculous as it gets for a opener in anything. And we'll see whether or not Suppy and Xenocider will be able to bring it. They were able to last time. They crushed Incredible Miracle in the 2v2. I think it clearly showed that one team had practiced 2v2 and the other hadn't.
Which is not particularly surprising. I know very few pro gamers actively play 2v2.
No, they don't. And I know that Suppy and Xenocider did practice with some pretty good 2v2ers, and they play... At least last time they played the American meta, which was 10-pull Hellion. Apparently, that's the way to go. So I'm told.
I believe it. There's always... If you look hard enough, there's always a couple diehard 2v2 players that will fill you in on what you need to know. Indeed,
they will. And Suppy and Xenocider have been able to figure that one out. So they may be able to take that opening map, which I think is important. Especially with the 2v2, that's kind of an up-for-grabs sort of map that anyone can get, so getting a hold of that one is a good start to momentum. And then we'll have a little bit of PvP. We've got In Control versus Baby Knight on Fallen Dreams. Not the first PvP we've seen in this map, but hopefully the longest, because the last one was a 1-base 4-gate. Didn't really go on for too long.
Yes, and then after that on New Pompeii, I'm not... sorry to interrupt this progression of maps, but is New Polaris Rhapsody the lava map?
It is.
Okay, so that's... I think that may be the only map in here that I've actually seen games on. What do we expect from Fallen Dreams? What's kind of like the notable part of it?
So the notable part of Fallen Dreams is the fact that the best rush through the center of the map is done over a set of retractable bridges. There are 6 in total, and there is a single Xel'Naga tower, which doesn't really cover the bridges too well, but it gives you a little bit of control over the center. Every 45 seconds, the bridges are going to pull back. So that's a little crazy. And then the bridges are going to come back into place again. There is a way around the map. There is a rush around it, but it takes about twice as long to get there. And as a result of that, every time we've played Fallen Dreams, almost always we've seen Zerg play on it, because speedlings can avoid the bridges quite easily, and they can go around the side, so that works pretty well. But Protoss, well, the only thing we saw out of them was, again, a 1-base 4-gate. You can bypass the bridges quite easily with pylon warpins, of course, so that kind of favors, I think, early game aggression. But outside of that, we haven't seen much on Fallen Dreams as of yet.
Alright, so that's pretty exciting. After that is on New Pompeii, we have Marine Lord versus Huck, which, if this had happened just a couple of days ago, I would say Marine Lord maybe to be slightly favored, Huck having not done particularly well in some of the recent events, but after Huck's dominating performance in WCS, taking out, I believe it was Hero and possibly Shigua. I don't remember, but I know he won his group and he took out some very good players doing it. Huck, I think he can take that. Is there anything super crazy about New Pompeii?
So New Pompeii is a 5-base spawn map. So you've got a couple of different places you can spawn. It's a circular map with 5 bases, but close spawns are disabled. So it's possible for you to kind of be in a cross position sort of setup, or you could be a little bit closer. The interesting thing about that one is the main has 2 entrances, and the map has a circular rush setup, meaning that you can go all the way around the side of the map clockwise or all the way around anti-clockwise. Last time we saw a Zerg vs. Zerg on there, and it was pretty crazy because we had Kane setting up Baneling ambushes from 2 different sides and trying to sync them up, which worked pretty well.
Wait, so you can't go through the center, or...?
You can, but there's a lot of rocks there, so you got to break them down. Early game, you've got to go around the outside of the map. And there's also a force field around the entire map, which makes airplay difficult.
Interesting.
Yeah,
all right,
it's
cool.
a little weird. So I have no idea what to expect from a TVP on that map. That could end up being really strange, and considering there's only 2 viable paths, as long as Marine Lords practice the map, you should be able to spot any pylons that are coming in. There aren't that many places to hide them, so I don't think Huck will be able to get aggressive early game on that one.
Right. Yeah, probably go into more macro, or if he's going to be aggressive, he's going to be more brute force rather than secret.
Yes, I would think so. It could be interesting to see how that goes. I mean, that's a map that we haven't really seen too much mid or late game on. So the first time it was played was actually last Clan War, in fact, with Kane. And it was a really fun ZVZ on that map, but it's hard to say exactly where it's going to go outside of that. And then we've got Neo Jungle Valley, which is probably the most, well, it's the least ridiculous map in the pool. And it's actually one that Jaedong has lost on in the past to a Protoss player. We had Yonghua go with a 2-base Blink all-in on that map, which destroyed Jaedong. Jaedong got a little bit too greedy. Outside of that, the strange thing about Neo Jungle Valley is that it is impossible to get across the map without using cliff walking or flying units until you break down rocks to open up a path, and there are multiple paths that you can use. So, in theory, it's a very safe map to get really greedy early on, but especially Protoss have big 2-base all-in plays that work very well there, and a very big 2-base all-in, I think, breaks those rocks down quite quickly and then destroys the opponent. So it's a bit dicey one way or the other, but if it goes to a normal game, then it plays out relatively regularly, I would say.
Yeah, right, once the rocks are down. That seems like 4GG has a definite advantage there if he can freely open those Reapers and not have to worry about the possibility of counter-aggression for a long time.
Yes, it's nice for Terran in that respect. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see more Terran playing on that map. We actually saw a TBT on there, which ended up being pretty cool between, I believe it was Jigua, not Jigua, what am I talking about? What's his name? Igers, that's the one. That's the other name that makes no sense and sounds Chinese. There we go. And that was versus Jack G, and that was a really good TBT that happened on that map. So that map's got a lot of potential. And we've got Wrecking Ball as well. TBT on Wrecking Ball could be pretty cool. That is a map that it has some very interesting expansion positions, but the biggest feature of that map is the fact that it has 6 neutral missile turrets to the right and left of the main bases that will shoot at anything that go across there. It makes drop play onto a potential 5th base very difficult, and if you don't know the map, you accidentally run a medevac into it, or an Overlord, for instance, you might as well just kiss your game goodbye.
I'm excited. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's all pretty great, I think. So we are finally ready, folks. We're unfortunately waiting on our players to get in here, and they're a little bit late, but now they're here. So Marine Lord and Daishi. Daishi is going to be playing Zerg. He will be off-racing this time around.
Yes, Daishi playing Zerg. So we're going to have a mirror matchup in this 2v2. TZ. And
yep.
I have very little familiarity with 2v2s, so
join the club.
If you said 10 pool Hellions is the thing, then that's probably the thing. At least that's what Suppy and Xenocider did last time.
That's what Suppy told me. He said, hey, yeah, that's apparently the current American meta. I'm like, all right then, fair enough. I'm going to listen to you on that one, considering it was good enough to beat IM. It's probably good enough to beat most people. So
yeah, that seems reasonable. Okay.
I think so.
It's always interesting, 2v2 being one of those formats that people tried to promote early on. It was kind of a thing around beta and early StarCraft 2, and it faded out. And there were some people who played it a bit, but by and large, 2v2 is really played by not pro gamers. And I always love to see it with these top-tier players, where they take the mechanics and the game sense that they've honed so hard in 1v1 and they apply it to 2v2.
Yeah, that's I would agree with that. The problem is that most of them don't really seem to understand 2v2 enough for the mechanics to even matter, and they end up just dying really early. And this map in particular is very unusual. We are about to get going once again. We've got to...
Oh yeah, did we even talk about this map?
No, we haven't. And I think once you start scrolling around and you look towards the center, you'll notice why this is a little bit weird.
Are all of those destructible?
Yep, every last one of them. It's a remake of a Brood War map called Iron Curtain. And the special feature of the map in particular is that this is the only access point initially, but either side there are two fairly weak collapsible rock towers that can actually close off rush potential entirely early on. So we have seen most players not really utilize that setup. Axiom tried it, and instead of collapsing it, they decided to go for a 2-barracks wall-off, which was fine, except for the fact that Life went slightly further up and just broke the rocks down with lings, and then snuck around the barracks. So it's a really weird map, and nobody seems to truly understand it yet.
Sorry, I literally spent that whole explanation trying to find the collapsible rocks, but I see them now in the center.
Yep. This, and they're pretty easy to collapse. I mean, it's only... Wow, this is really early coming out here from Suppy, actually.
Yeah, that seems like a really early scout. Maybe they're worried about something?
Possibly, yeah.
Maybe there's some... It could be like a 6-pool and a 888 or something like that. I don't know exactly what the threats are that you need to be wary of. Like in 1v1, you kind of know there are certain things that you have to scout for. Like at a certain time, if you don't scout, you're vulnerable to certain things. In 2v2, I don't have that same bearing. So he sees that Daishi is going for the fast gas and a fast pool, so kind of what we expected. And back at Suppy's base, he's going for also a fast gas and a fast pool, but slightly slower than Daishi.
Yeah,
and maybe oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, by all means.
Maybe the point, this is a Brood War thing, is you scout in ZVZ, one of the advantages you could get was by putting your pool down slightly later than your opponent.
Yeah.
And so if you could get your Overlord into their base early on, you could do that. And maybe that's kind of the logic stuff he's using here. He drone scouts the Zerg early, and he just sees, like, how early does my pool need to be, actually, to deal with what you've done? And Suppy puts his pool down a little bit later than Daishi, and that gives him a slightly stronger economy. That's just a theory, though.
Yeah, I'd certainly say that sounds reasonable. We should point out, by the way, that Mo Big Dick is, in fact, Marine Lord. He apologized profusely. He has no renames left on his US account, so he's pretty much stuck with this, which is unfortunate, and I'm actually kind of surprised that name was even let through the filter.
And that that means he had to use one of his renames to make his account named that in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, what was done to you as a child that makes that happen? I mean, that's a question I think that needs to be asked here.
Interestingly, Xeno is actually going for a much later Hellions than Marine Lord. You can see Marine Lord's factory is already done. He went for a gas first, reactor after single Marine, whereas Xenocider went for 13 gas. So that's a reactor after 2 Marines. The barracks is later. It gives him a stronger economy, but the Hellions are much later, which may translate... Right now, it just feels like Team Millenium is gearing up for some serious aggression. They've got the earlier pool, earlier speed, earlier Hellions, and even Marine Lord has a second factory building now. So they're really going to commit to this pressure.
And good luck with that. The rocks are down the center. It's going to take a while to get through those. Obviously, Daishi's going to work on them already. They are 3 armor, 2,000 health rocks, so it's not as ridiculous as the other rocks over the side, which are 4,000, but this was a deliberate move here by Suppy. He knew aggression was coming. He wanted to delay it, and that's exactly what he's managed to do. It's going to take a little bit longer to bring these rocks down, and hopefully... for the EG players, they should be prepared. We're seeing a start pot coming up from Xenocider and continuing to build Hellions, so potential Hellion drop play coming out of him.
Yeah, Xenocider, a little bit of a blunder here. You can see the starport is finishing, but the tech lab is not quite done. Definitely wants to get... He needs to get those Banshees out pretty much as soon as possible. They're not particularly good against Speedlings, but because the Hellions are just a little bit slower than the Speedlings, the Banshee can kind of... bully them around the map, and the Hellions will take so much damage from those Banshees. So the sooner you can get that out, the better. But even Xeno's got this bunker. I think he's ready for this pressure. The Millennium team is wise to be targeting the Zerg. Zerg is much harder to fortify up, and you can see that the Speedlings and the Hellions are getting into Suppy's natural right now.
This is a lovely timing here from Team Millennium. We've got Banelings morphing in right there. The hatchery had just finished, and it looks like that's going to be forced to go down. Suppy is not going to try and save it, and I don't really blame him. There's a little bit too much there. Xenocider comes in from the side to try and pick away at the Banelings, but there are too many units here for that, and we're going to, of course, have to see a combined defense. Otherwise, I don't think Suppy's going to be able to hold this on his own, especially not with the Banelings here. Xenocider is trying to move in to reinforce from the back, but Suppy needs to survive until his Hellions get there.
But the Hellions, even when they do get there, this is a direct result of the way these players opened, is because Marine Lord went for that gas first, he just has this constant Hellion advantage over Xenocider. Xenocider can't really get in and engage. Maybe there's also a little bit of a macro mistake here that's resulting in this consistent... Like, this is a big difference right now, and I think, yeah, it's Marine Lord's second factory is kicked in, and so Suppy's, or sorry, not Suppy, Xenocider's never going to catch up on Hellion count at this point. Not with one factory.
Yeah,
so
what he does have is this tech advantage, though. He's about to kick in with Cloak, and his second Banshee's about to be on the field as well.
Right, the Banshee is really what Team EG needs to get back in this game. There's really... Suppy's economy is absolutely destroyed. Meanwhile, we see Daishi has his second base up. He doesn't have a lot of drones, but he's still got that 2 hatcheries up. Without the Banshee doing a significant advantage for Team Evil Geniuses, it's very hard to imagine how they could come back.
Well, Xenocide is going to give it a shot, and in fact, he's managed to... I mean, he can't finish this. Wow. I mean, Marine Lord's going to lose all of his SCVs here at this rate. There's an attempted Widow Mine coming up, but he's not even going to try and finish the missile turret. In the meantime, Marine Lord's Hellions make their way in there, and once again try and do damage to Suppy's economy, what's left of it. Xenocide is doing fine, though, and he's got 2 Banshees out. He's working on a third. Finally, Marine Lord realizes, yeah, I've got to try and finish his missile turret. Gets it, but the Banshee kills 14 SCVs before that happens.
Yeah, so Marine Lord's economy is not so great. At this point, the double factory is really going to be doing a lot of nothing for him. There's no way he has enough money to produce off of that. What Millennium needs to do now is just ignore Suppy. He's sitting at 5 drones. The time it's going to take for him to actually get a real economy is kind of astronomical. They don't need to do any damage to EG anymore. If Daishi can just... If both players can stabilize against this threat of the Banshee, they'll be in a great spot. That's really the only thing that EG has going for them at this point.
But it's a damn big thing. I mean, if you look at the economy right now, Daishi's on 32 drones, yes, but Marine Lord is down to 15 SCV, so that big amount of Hellion pressure that was coming out of the double factory, there's no way he can support that anymore. Lings make their way in, and they're doing yet more damage to the economy of Daishi at this point, who just drops below 20 drones with the Banshees continue to reinforce here. Daishi doesn't have an answer to the air pressure. Marine Lord certainly doesn't have an answer to the air pressure, and these Banshees from Xenocider are really getting work done.
Yeah, both of these players, both Daishi and Marine Lord here have... It's like they never even considered that Banshees were a possibility, and you can see it in the way that they're reacting. Marine Lord does not need more Hellions. He doesn't need to make more Hellions out of these double factories. What he needs is a starport. He needs a starport, and he needs some Vikings.
It doesn't matter.
And
GG, the Banshees are going to win the game.
Yeah, the Banshees are too strong. Neither player had a backup plan. They had no idea of how to deal with that. Some Spore Crawlers, additional Queens, Hydralisk then, but the Banshees caught them off guard. They got too involved with that pressure, trying to finish Suppy off, and meanwhile Xenocider just doing a great job with his Banshees, moving them around and taking them out.
Yep, that worked pretty well, to say the least. We had, I suppose Suppy is the sacrificial lamb there. Took a lot of damage, but even on low economy, he's able to build a decent number of Lings up. His defense was at least able to cost Millennium quite a bit in terms of doing damage. And then Xenocider goes for the quick tech, is kind of left alone. The Banshees come in, and as you said, this is the kind of thing that Marine Lord could have answered with a starport, but he doesn't. He thinks, all right, okay, we can just ignore the Banshees. We can finish EG off, and that's not true at all. And Xenocider was just chugging away on one base with the Cloak Banshee, and that was that.
Yeah. Even if they had finished Suppy off, I'm not even sure that they were really coming around to a response to the Banshee in time. We saw Daishi added a Roach Horn. I think between his 2 bases, he had 1 Spore Crawler. I would guess that in their practice, that was how they won. With that push, with the fast Banelings of really fast double factory Hellions, like their practice games were probably ending at that point all the time, and they never really had to deal with how to transition, how to deal with potential threats.
As you said, it's not something that pro gamers do an awful lot, 2v2, so it's very unexplored, and we actually see a different build out of EG this time, who have now picked up both of their 2v2 games in the Clan Wars so far, so they obviously know what they're doing.
Yeah, puts them at a good lead.
Good start, yeah.
For the Clan War. Nice advantage, just that quick 1-0. Only about 10 minutes for that first game. Coming up next, we're going to be Fallen Dreams, the map with the retractable bridges, which I am... I'm so excited. Just
gonna be
sounds
fun.
so funny. What happens when if the units are on the bridge when it retracts? Do they die?
Oh yes, they fall in the river and melt.
Nice. So maybe I would like to see some force fields or some fungal growths keeping those units on that bridge while they retract.
That's my dream, man. That's exactly what I've wanted to see up to this point. We just haven't quite seen it yet, but I have a feeling that we will at some point. We're going to go on a quick break, folks. Run a few ads to thank, of course, our sponsors and make sure that they don't lose all of their money that they're investing in this event. That would be nice. And we will be back with Game 2 on Fallen Dreams in this clan war between EG and Millenium. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to SHOUTCraft Clan Wars, and it's going to be a good one, I think. We've got Baby Knight versus In Control here on Fallen Dreams, a little bit of PvP action. Looks like everyone is ready to get started. And, you know, I have this feeling, Kevin, that you're a little bit excited to see this map in action.
I want to see the bridges, and I want to see everything die to the bridges.
That's what everyone has been hoping up to this point. So far, it hasn't happened. Mostly because it's been Zerg versus Zerg on this map, and speedlings are so quick that they...
Yeah,
doesn't really matter.
That's unfair.
I tend to agree. I also want to see an entire army die in the lava, but you would have to be the silliest player to allow that to happen.
It warns you when the lava's rising on that map, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That you know the entire way. There's no way you can get caught out by that.
What if you just remove the warnings?
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? I'm not sure if that is fair, but it would be hilarious.
Well, isn't the whole point of SHOUTCraft Clan Wars to be a little more hilarious than fair?
We might have to start pushing things in the more hilarious direction. I actually had Adam over at MLG suggest, what about if you did a monthly final where you specifically designed the most unfair map imaginable, threw the two players in it, and see who came out ahead? And you know what? That sounds like fun. I think we should do that at some point.
Okay, so I do see the bridges are gone now.
Indeed, they are.
Just watching, and then they extend in some amount of time. Can you build on the bridges? I assume no.
No, I do not believe that you can do that. That would be very strange if you could. We've never seen it happen. I assume that you can't. That would be a little weird. So why don't we introduce our players? To the northeast position, in the blue trunks playing Protoss for Team Millenium, it is Baby Knight. Versus his opponent to the southwest position. In the red trunks, also playing Protoss, EG In Control.
Woo! Hey, so I have a question. Why does one of the gas geysers have, like, a scarf? Does that mean anything?
Not a damn thing. I believe that was just something that the map designer decided to put in there. There's a couple of maps that we have in our pool that have some rather odd-looking gas geysers just because our community map artists are... well, they just want to be different, honestly.
Yeah. So we do see Baby Knight playing... he's scouting around his base, checking for proxies, whereas In Control is just going across the map and checking... Oh, is that probe gonna die?
He almost lost it. That would have been...
almost did.
That would have been pretty funny. He was cutting it fine there, I've got to say, on that probe. I do hope to see at least one thing die.
I'm gonna scout my opponent. Where did my scout go?
Whoops. That could be a real problem. It's like, well, might as well GG right there. That was too embarrassing for me to bear.
So both players doing almost the same builds here.
Mm-hmm.
Both double gas, 2 on each gas. Core is about the same timing, and Chrono Boost is actually about the same. In Control, though, attacking the probe.
Because why not? Doing a little bit of damage, just annoying his opponent a little. It's not going to get anything done outside of that, but why not? Going to patrol around this base as much as you can just to get as much information. Is there anything that you would read into In Control's building positioning here, or is it just a case of, I'm going to make you think that I'm cheesy, but really I'm just playing standard?
I think this might be playing more towards that, the idea that you get into your opponent's base and you literally see nothing, and for a moment, not a long moment, but for a moment you think, oh, is this a proxy? Is this or that? And then you look around a little more and you see it and you're like, oh, okay. The other thing, though, is that with a photon overcharge, In Control has nothing to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
The gateway and the core in the back there are basically completely covered. I guess Baby Knight's gateway and core in the front are also pretty covered. Maybe a bit more exposed, but probably won't come into play very much.
Well, In Control is adding 2 more gateways on, whereas Baby Knight is taking the tech option here. He's going to go for the Twilight Council. Both players elect, of course, to build a Mothership Core, because why on earth would you not in this matchup? But 3 gates from In Control.
And chrono boosting his warp gate research quite a bit. If we look at the difference here, In Control's warp gate is about 30, I think when the chrono boost finishes, it might be closer to 40 seconds ahead of Baby Knight.
It is.
And Baby Knight has no additional gateways at this point. He'll probably start Blink, and then in just a moment he'll start adding these additional gateways. But they're not going to be done in time for this initial push. You can see In Control's got his forward pylon. Baby Knight has not seen any forward pylons, but he does have his units in position to defend a frontal attack.
Do you think that 3-gate pressure could break photon overcharge? Is that even possible?
I unfortunately do not know. I don't play a lot of PvP.
It does seem like it would be a little bit difficult. It's like it almost wouldn't be enough units to actually make that happen. So
yeah,
I'm intrigued to see what In Control's plan is here.
I think the situation you may be looking for is you're not trying to actually kill the Nexus while Photon Overcharge is triggered. You're trying to get Photon Overcharge triggered, then you continue to produce more and more units, and then when the Photon Overcharge goes away, you have a significant advantage. Or, if Baby Knight had taken a second base, let's say he expanded to that very accessible natural that's like almost part of his main, then he might have a lot of trouble defending this.
Yep. Apparently, In Control had Jaedong's hotkeys on accidentally. I have no idea why that would have been the case, but
yeah, that's a little strange.
He may also, of course, be lying. He's been known to be a little trickster, that one.
Based on the way In Control is playing this, I think he's basically going to wait until Photon Overcharge finishes, and then he's going to get in there and do as much as he can. And Baby Knight has recognized that this is a potential threat. You can see he's started... he's continuously producing Stalkers. He's making an Observer, which... perhaps he just doesn't want to commit the money to an Immortal, and he just wants to be a little safer. But once Blink finishes, I don't think In Control can continue this pressure. Blink Stalkers are a lot better than regular Stalkers.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think Baby Knight's Blink Micro is slightly better, and I can certainly say that it is if his opponent doesn't have Blink at all. That's not going to go well for him. I'm actually kind of surprised that In Control is continuing to hang around here. He did see the Twilight, so he knows Blink is there. And he's now, of course, going to have to defend that, which, again, entirely possible with an Immortal and Photon Overcharge.
Oh, hang on. No.
Yeah, there's no way.
If Baby Knight saw that, there's no way he can get home.
He did see it. Yeah, he's right on top of him now. I think In Control might have just made a horrible mistake.
Yeah,
and some damage is certainly being done to Baby Knight here, but, I mean, In Control's going to lose all his Stalkers. There's no doubt about that.
Blink Stalkers against non-Blink Stalkers, there's absolutely no way you can take this fight.
No.
It's like watching Speedlings fight against non-Speedlings. Just the amount of additional control that the player with the upgrade has is almost insurmountable. Yep. Assuming relatively even skill levels. If In Control had caught Baby Knight's...
See, if
it didn't have the warning... right? Huh?
There's no way you would play on this map as a pro player if that warning wasn't there. Come on, admit it.
It's not about me. It's about the viewers.
Well, this is interesting because there's 2 Immortals available. There's a Photon Overcharge, and there's a Zealot run by going in. So, Baby Knight has got to kill In Control right now. In fact, there might even be a 3rd Immortal, but I think... he's got to jump right on top of it. The Zealots are making their way into the mineral line here.
Yeah, but there's a Photon Overcharge for Baby Knight once he activates that. And I think you can predict the future. He has to kill him right now, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Once the Robotics Bay comes down, he's basically...
it.
Yeah, In Control's stuck with just Gateway units against a massive Blink Stalkers.
GG. There we go. And Baby Knight taking a win that I think most people would have expected. Baby Knight's PvP is really, really strong. In Control is maybe not quite on his level, so I don't think anyone's really surprised by that result.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting to see how the game would have played out if In Control had actually gone home. He would have been in I think, a slight disadvantage because he's losing those 2 forward pylons, he's behind on tech, but he still has his army, he still started as Immortal production, and it could have stabilized into something that was a little more back and forth, but keeping those units out, whether he thought Blink was a little farther away or he was playing it a little risky, like, if the bridge had been up, I think Baby Knight would have been across the map.
Yeah.
And then that Stalker backstab looks a lot more reasonable. All of a sudden, it's like, well, you've got Blink Stalkers and I don't. And that's fine, I don't care. I'm just going to attack you while your Blink Stalkers are doing the counterplay. But because the bridges were up, Baby Knight was just sitting there waiting, and In Control walked right into it.
Yeah, the map has some weird dynamics that are not as obvious, I think, to a lot of viewers. They'll see the bridges and think, well, what if something falls into the river? That's the obvious thing, but that rarely ever happens because we're playing with pros here. But there are some subtle effects that result from those bridges even being there. And like you just pointed out, the reason those Stalkers were there is because the bridges were retracted and they couldn't have crossed at that point. So that affected the decision-making of Baby Knight.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting to see what would happen if In Control had waited probably about 10 seconds after the bridge had gone up, or even maybe just if he either waited until a little bit after the bridge came up so Baby Knight was very clearly probably on his side of the map, or if he waits until after the bridge has come up and then right after it retracts so that Baby Knight path home is so much longer all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Right? Because as the bridge is up, he can walk straight back. If he crosses the last bridge onto In Control side of the map, the bridge retracts and In Control backstabs his main, then all of a sudden it takes so much longer to get home and defend against that. It would have been really interesting.
Well, unfortunately, it didn't work out that way, but here's hoping we do see a game at some point on that map that does work in the way that you just described, because, I mean, that sounds to me like something I would want to watch. As it stands, though, we've got EG versus Millenium currently 1 apiece, and we are going on to our next map right here, which is going to be a TVP Marine Lord versus Huck, and it's going to be on New Pompeii. This could go anywhere, and we're about to find out, so I'd suggest that you guys don't go anywhere, so we'll be right back after these messages. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to SHOUTCraft Clan Wars, Millenium versus the Evil Geniuses, currently 1 apiece in this best of 7 Pro League format series, and we've got Mr. Marine Lord, the well-endowed, versus E.G. Huck here.
And we'll be playing on New Pompeii. Remind me again, what's the gimmick here?
Potential 5-spawn map with...
Oh, it's the... Oh, no, that was Neo Jungle Valley. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's the Circular Island map, which is 5 spawns. You can't spawn close, but you can spawn anywhere else. And it has 2 main ramps out of the main base, as well as a bunch of rocks through the center. So it's odd. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, cool. Oh, this is... Yeah, this is the one where you said there's like a... It's kind of like a circular paths around, and it's hard to go through the center initially.
Yes,
right?
That's
okay,
very
cool.
true. So, there's 2 circular paths. You can go one way or the other. One way is significantly longer than the other, but it is possible to basically come in through the back of the base, and you've got to watch out for that. It's going to be a little bit difficult, I think, for... Certainly, I wouldn't want to see Terran try and play against Zerg on this map. That would be very difficult to deal with, but TVP could be interesting.
Yeah. We'll have to see. Huck is a very unpredictable player. Sometimes he'll play... Huck is... He's not afraid. There's one thing that I would use to describe him. We'll see him play Nexus first. We'll see him proxy. We'll see him do just about anything and everything in order to take these games, depending on what he's expecting from his opponents and what he's feeling in that current day. So I don't know. I don't know what to say, and I wonder how much he's looked at this map, because it definitely could influence his strategy here.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him cheese, certainly. It is a map that has that kind of potential, and how effective that's going to be is dependent on how much Marine Lord has practiced this map. So, without further ado, here we are in New Pompeii, ladies and gentlemen, to the west position. In the blue trunks for Team Millenium, playing Terran, it's Marine Lord. With his porn star name here. Versus his opponent. I wonder what his porn star name is. It's the northeast position, in the red trunks playing Protoss, is E.G. Huck.
Can a Reaper jump down the spot like just east of where Marine Lord spawned? Can it jump straight into the middle from there?
Yeah, I believe it can. It's almost like Arkanoid from the old Pro League days, where Reapers are certainly quite good at what they do.
Okay. Oh, there's like a little tiny destructible rock. It's like an adorable little destructible rock. That's actually quite amusing. I don't know why. It
is the smallest destructible rock in the history of StarCraft. It also has the equivalent HP, 401 armor.
Yes. So it's fragile. I mean, it's basically a supply depot.
Yes. That's exactly what it is. Now, as you will note from both bases, there is this ramp right here, but then there's a ramp at the back, and it's not blocked off by rocks. So both of these are accessible. Both of them are very viable. And we saw Kane in particular exploit that in a Zerg versus Zerg. We had some really weird situations with Zerglings running around the map, both going anti-clockwise on opposite sides of the map, trying to reach the other person's base. It was a bit odd to watch, honestly.
I think I would actually like to see Huck proxy a Stargate in the center of the map. Because it's so hard to get out there and it's so close. Like, so if you can't spawn close, so there's a very central location where you could put a Stargate that is almost adjacent to both of the places that your opponent could spawn. That seems like a potentially great way to exploit this map.
Yeah, I'm seeing what you mean right here, actually. It's down to the southwest or space, I believe.
Kind of like just a little northeast of where the destructible rocks are in that southwest between the two center bases.
Yeah. There's all sorts of unexplored strategies here, so I have to wonder if Huck's going to pull any of them.
The other thing that's really strange is the expansion. Like, I'm trying to imagine which bases you would hold. Let's say you get up to 4 bases.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have 4 bases on this map, any 4 that you want, and you're going to try and defend them. And it's just a nightmare. Because you're going to have one on the far side of your base. One will be in the middle, probably. But that's not easily accessible until you break those rocks. I think the later parts of the game will definitely go into controlling the center. That's where a lot of the control will come to. But Huck is actually just going to go for a Zealot Stalker Mothership Core timing. And Marine Lord is made 2 Reapers. So they're going to be going across the map. The Mothership Core does spot the Reapers, and now it's really up to Huck. How is he going to defend that? Is he going to bring the Mothership Core back? Is he going to rely on the second Stalker that he made? And it looks like he's just... Wait, no, he didn't make a second Stalker. He cut the second Stalker in order to get that faster Stargate. Yeah.
He put that over to the side here. The Reapers are now moving in to try and do a little bit of damage. They should be able to do so towards the back there. The Zealot is finally going to die, and it only killed a single SCV, but yeah, there should be enough Marines to push this back here, especially if Huck doesn't micro.
And meanwhile, in Huck's base, probes plus a Mothership Core clean up both of the Reapers, putting Marine Lord in just a not a good spot.
No, not at all. I'm quite surprised that Huck was able to pull that off. Catching Reapers is difficult enough. Catching 2 of them, that's even worse. And now Huck, of course, is going to go into that really fast Oracle.
And probably what Huck will try to do here is actually, he's just going to try and crash the front. This Oracle will basically be a battering ram, because he knows
Huck loses Stalker at the front there.
Yeah, quite a blunder here. What he wants to do is have a combined effort. He can even bring that probe along. 2 Stalkers, the Mothership Core, probe, and the Oracle versus what would be probably about 9 Marines right now. Is not bad odds.
Is being pulled out of position. The Oracle is coming around. Nice little maneuver there by Huck to be able to pull that off. And now, of course, the Oracle comes in to try and do some damage. The Marines moving to intercept. So far, Oracle with 3 SCV kills.
Ooh, and Oracle takes some damage.
Yeah. This is not a good Oracle map. You just noticed why. Huck can't get out. The force field was stopping the Oracle there. Marine Lord could have killed that Oracle. But I don't think Marine Lord realized that those force fields around the side are deliberately designed to deter this kind of air harass.
I actually really like that. Some of the things that we see in these maps are a little odd. and they're not things that you would want in a general competitive ladder map.
Absolutely
but
not.
these force fields around the edge, I like that a lot, actually. It makes for some different play. No longer can Medivacs just sit out and be immune.
Exactly. Yeah, and Oracle's, even Banshee harass is more difficult. Mothership Core goes down here, but that's going to be at the cost of a lot of Marines. Oracle has been killed. I think there might actually be enough Marines to push this back, but it depends on how good Huck's control is. He's going to have to deal with this other Widow Mine coming in, though, and I think it looks like Marine Lord should be able to hold this back.
Yep, the problem for Huck right now is he's lost all of his high ground vision, which means that he couldn't really continue to micro those Stalkers as well as he wanted to, and he could have tried to go into the main, but it would have been so risky if those Stalkers get caught by SCVs without the Oracle. If he still had the Oracle, he could use the Oracle to support the Stalkers, and the Oracle can kill the SCVs quite quickly. But just Stalkers alone, no pylon warp in, no support there, he really just had to back off. I think Marine Lord now is in a
pretty good
kind
spot.
of a dominant position.
Yeah, he's even going to start walling off this bottom path, which obviously shows that he's practiced this map and understands that there's the very real possibility of an attack from behind hitting his natural expansion, or just running right past it and going straight into the main. And he also needs to keep an eye out for potential proxy pylons. I wonder how far this is going to go. We do have Huck expanding here, but he is behind economically. He still has this Stargate.
Widow Mine in the main right now just goes down. One Widow Mine, boom!
Lovely
Kills
hit.
a whole bunch of workers there. A little bit sloppy from Huck there. He definitely could have prevented that from actually going off, but Marine Lord snuck it in and did some damage. Now we see the force field actually making it difficult. For
a bit hard to get out there.
Yeah.
He was able to, but yeah, these force fields are something that these players are going to have to deal with. They are annoying, they get in the way, and they interfere with pathing. It's really as simple as that. You've got to be more careful controlling your drops, controlling your air harass. Another push is coming out right here from Huck. Does he have another Mothership Core? He does, and of course he has that Oracle to provide vision up the ramp. Can Marine Lord actually hold on to this?
And this is really Huck's last chance here. He lost a bunch of probes. He's not building probes at this point. He's committed to this 4-gate pressure. He built a forge, but he's not using it. The Widow Mine is going to kill the Oracle, goes into the siege tanks, and there's really just not an opening here for Huck in this way. Maybe if he goes around, but with the Widow Mines and the siege tank at the top of that ramp, he can't just brute force that way.
No, even without bunkers, those two Widow Mines and that tank are going to do the job. I mean, you'd think that, considering Marine Lord is not sitting on either combat shields or stim, that this would be difficult. Huck's going to try and bring his Mothership Core in and perhaps use a time warp to catch his opponent out of position. Maybe he could have pulled that off if he dropped a time warp right then and then tried to make his way up the ramp, but he's still dealing with a tank and two mines. It could be potentially very costly.
Yeah, this is just not looking good. Huck is basically on a clock here. He's down too many workers. He's committed so much money into these units. He's not started any upgrade out of his forge. He has no tech, and he's kind of in this nomad zone where he also can't attack his opponent. It looks like what he's going to try and do is go Void Rays, and I don't know how I feel about that. I think maybe Huck's best bet at this point, now that it's in this position, is basically stabilized. There's not a lot of opportunities for aggression, at least not head-on. Maybe one or two Zealots at the natural, and it's just like a very low committal just to kind of keep the pressure off of you would be nice. And then he can transition, get +1 armor, maybe make some Void Rays, I guess. I don't know. There's going to be a big stim timing coming up here that Huck's composition and upgrades is just not really in position to deal with.
No, Photon Overcharge is pretty good. It might be good enough to actually hold this, and if he's able to do that, he may be able to stabilize and start to transition into yet more tech, maybe gain access through the center of the map here. A pylon is down to the south of the map, looking for a potential run-by, and Marine Lord never fully walled that ramp off, so there is a possibility there. There's the Photon Overcharge kicking in, but Marine Lord has a good position with these 3 Widow Mines and the tank.
And there's a Marine Medevac drop in the main right now, so Huck going to lose some probes, pulling his units back to the main, going to kill the cannon, and probably just jump out in a second here. Well, I imagine he's going to be
lose the Medevac.
Oh,
that was a bit of a mistake there by Marine Lord. It's not really what you want.
I think maybe he was busy, distracted by the Zealots running into his natural. You can see Huck is warping in a lot of units right now. Marine Lord actually overcommitting on SCVs at this point. What he really needs to do, cut SCVs, forget about SCVs. You don't need any more. Your opponent is behind. He just needs to make a lot of barracks and keep this push going.
Huck could have made a lot more happen if that pylon hadn't been killed just before the warpin completed. There was another warpin of Zealots going in, which didn't end up happening. There goes the photon overcharge once again, and Huck is going to try and hold this.
Oh,
nice Void Ray flank. Lovely, taking out the tank. That's what we want to see. And it looks like Huck is going to continue to hold on here, but he's still very much behind worker-wise.
Yep, and not only is he behind on workers, but he also doesn't have the gases at his natural, and he's only just now started +1 armor. Meanwhile, Marine Lord is about to head into 1-1 here. Does get another Oracle, is going to pick off these Widow Mines. Oh, doesn't want to lose the Oracle. This is really his only mobile detection. He does not want to have to build another one. And meanwhile, I think he's going to keep the Void Rays kind of on, like, medevac sniping duty. If there's any drops that get in, he brings his whole army over, forces the liftoff, and that the Void Rays with their prismatic, whatever it's called, prismatic alignment, will kill those medevacs very quickly, preventing them from really getting away.
Huck with yet another Zealot run by, although it's going to get shut down without too much damage being done at this point. And with 58 SCVs and 2 orbitals, I mean, that's not really something. Oh, Huck loses his mobile detection, as you pointed out earlier. There is no photon overcharge available, at least not for another few seconds, so this is a big push coming out right here from Marine Lord. Will he be able to make it work? I think he's got more than enough.
Yeah, it looks like Huck is just going to get
GG.
Pushed over, and he was, I don't know, even early on in that game, it felt like it was almost already decided. It was very difficult to see how Huck could make a recovery. The Zealot Stalker Mothership Core pressure just not quite doing what it needed to, and then the Oracle follow-up didn't really give him the momentum that he needed to make the 3-gate follow-up work. I think if Huck had been planning on going 1 Oracle into Nexus, into Twilight Forge, or whatever, he would have been in a pretty good spot. But because he was committing so much to that attack, and for whatever reason, Marine Lord was just ready. The first Oracle didn't really get the kills that he needed it to.
No, if he'd been able to perhaps get a later Oracle and then strike the natural and try and really hold back the economy of Marine Lord, then I could have seen something happening there with Huck. But the problem is, he was stuck on the defense after that and was never able to tech out of that Gateway and Stargate setup, which was nowhere near enough to deal with a big ball of Marine Marauder, especially not with Widow Mines added in. I think the addition of the Widow Mines was fantastic, particularly bearing in mind they've just been buffed.
Yeah, definitely. And it kept... Marine Lord did a really good job of keeping the pressure on, so that Huck didn't really have the flexibility that he needed to get into a real mid-game composition. Gateway units plus a little bit of Stargate support only works for so long, and we saw that his time ran out on that composition.
No doubt about that. Absolutely did. Well, the big guns are coming out right now. Neo Jungle Valley will be the next destination for our encounters, and we've got Jaedong versus 4GG. Looking forward to that one.
And this is the match I'm most excited for.
The question is, can Jaedong deal with Neo Jungle Valley? Because he bombed out pretty quickly the first time they put him out on this map. Hopefully he's learned it a little bit more. That said, he was at IEM Cologne during the time when he should have been preparing for this, so obviously he's going to prioritize one over the other, so the chances are he'd never even played the map. Now he's had weeks to have a look at this, a huge amount of warning time, so I'm expecting a very different Jaedong on this map, and we're going to find out after the break. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to SHOUTCraft Clan Wars, EG versus Millenium. It's currently 2-1 in favor of Millenium as the big guns have been brought out on both sides. Neo Jungle Valley will be the battlefield, and it's going to be Jaedong versus 4GG.
Yeah, and this is kind of the maybe what should be the ace match, or maybe what we will see again as the ace match here, going into probably both teams' strongest players. Yes, I'd think so. You can say that.
Yep. I mean, Daishi's been performing really well lately, and 4GG was surprisingly underperforming in WCS EU, but regardless of that, I'd still say that on a good day, 4GG is definitely the strongest player by a country mile. So we will see how this goes, and we are here on Neo Jungle Valley for the second time here for Jaedong, who is hoping to avenge his earlier loss on this map, and of course, bring his team to 2-2, so let's see if he can manage it. ladies and gentlemen, to the northwest position in the red trunks playing Zerg, E.G. Jaedong. Versus his opponent to the northeast position in the blue trunks playing Terran. For Team Millenium, it's 4GG.
So, I'm just looking at the map now. Like you said, you can only get to the other player's base either by destroying rocks or with cliff jumping or air units, which means, I think Terran. Oh, should we?
Apparently, yeah. It seems like we might be incorrect on the game speed, which is weird. Okay, well, it's good that we caught that now. So that's strange because we're supposed to be pre-configured for faster. Apparently, we're not. So we will remake. I don't. Can I actually change this in-game? I've never had to do that.
Unless the map, this custom map lets you, I don't know how you would.
That is a great question. I don't know if you can do that on a custom map.
It's probably faster just to remake instead of trying to figure it out now.
Probably. I'm just going to quickly Google it. I've never had to change something mid-map. I'm not even sure if it's possible. Change speed, Starcraft 2, multiplayer. How on earth do you do that? During a match, is that even possible?
So normally it's not. The only way it would be possible is if whatever custom map that you're hosting this on has additional functionality.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it does. So we're gonna go for a remake here. It makes the most sense, I think. It's really strange that it did that because we do actually have a custom mod that we use for SHOUTCraft Clan Wars, which has everything predetermined. So it's really weird that game speed would be lower. That's very strange. Oh well, never mind. Apologies for the delay, folks. We will remake once again here on Neo Jungle Valley, and we will make sure that things are the way that they're supposed to be.
Yeah, that was strange. It said it like when the game started too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and it defaults to faster, as I expected. So, I think the only other possibility is perhaps the lobby lagged slightly, and I may have accidentally changed the game speed on a click and not noticed. I think that seems like the only way that could have happened. Really odd. Well, again, sorry for that, folks. That was certainly a mess-up on my part, and hate to waste the players' time, so let's get them right back in here immediately and make sure that this doesn't take too long. Now, as we're doing this, what would your assessment be as a Terran player on this map?
You're definitely opening Reaper, although you do have free reign to go low ground CC first.
Mm-hmm.
Based on previous trends, I would say it's much more likely that Terrans would be opening Reaper on this map. You can get to your opponent's base, especially if they don't scout you with the Overlord early. You have a lot of disparity in terms of information. If once your Reaper gets to their base, if they don't have an Overlord in yours, you're pretty much going to see whatever you want.
Yeah.
And they're not going to see a whole lot of anything. But this is a 4-player map, right?
It is, yes.
Which means that opening Reaper is a little riskier in that if you end up scouting your opponent last, that Reaper is going to get to their base actually very, very late. Because normally on a 4-player map, when you open Reaper, you also SCV scout.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll send your Reaper to one base, you send the SCV to another, and then at worst, your Reaper goes to 2 bases. It checks the first one, and then it goes to the second one. On this map, you can't SCV scout, which means that you could end up checking all 3 bases before finding your opponent with your Reaper. And at that point, the Reaper is really not very useful.
No, it's not. I mean, by that point, the defense is most assuredly out to make sure it doesn't really do any damage. It might even be denied scouting entirely, which would not be what you want. Well, we should be at proper speed now by the looks of it, and if we're not, then something's really wrong with this map, because I double-checked this time around. Alright, folks, here we go. Let's try this one again. To the northeast position, the red trunks playing Zerg. It is E.G. Jaedong versus his opponent to the southwest position this time around. In the blue trunks playing Terran, it's Millenium 4GG.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such an unusual map that it's hard to say exactly like what is favored, what type of play do you really want to consider? I think CC First and Reaper are really the only two openings that you would even consider.
Mm-hmm.
There's like Gas First stuff, but those builds are all really weird and generally quite bad. And even the surprise of it coming in, I don't think would validate the use of it. But here we're going to see 4GG make his decision. He's got 3 SCVs queued up in his command center. He's going CC first.
Yep, looks it.
And this is definitely he'll get the more consistent result from this build than if he was going Reaper.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to see 3 hatch before pool here for Jadon? It's looking.
I think
like
it's a good risk to take.
Mm-hmm.
Just because even if your opponent opens Reaper, they still have a lot of chances to not find you.
Yeah.
And
well, it could be a really late 17 spawning pool, or it could be 3 hatch. If it goes any more than 17, it's surely going to be, well,
or
gas.
It's going to be gas pool.
Gas pool.
Which maybe
There we
go. So probably if Jaedong is really playing this map, I would predict 2-base Muta, or perhaps some sort of Nidus play. I think anything else is a little bit too slow. You definitely wouldn't do a hatchery level all-in, let's say like a Roach Bane or something, because the amount of time it would take you to break down the rocks to get to your opponent would completely invalidate the usefulness of doing the build.
I could not agree more with that. And what we've seen on this map previous has either been just some kind of weird funky airplay in the TVT with a lot of Banshees, or we've seen 2-base Protoss all in. So seeing a Terran versus Zerg on this map is not something we've had the pleasure of yet. And I like the idea of going for 2-base Muta in particular. If the rocks are not down, that means those Mutalisks have so many escape paths where there's no way in a million years that the Terran's going to be able to successfully chase them down.
I think Jaedong's going for a more middle-of-the-road build. He's gotten the fast speed, but he's keeping 1 on gas.
Mm-hmm. Taking it over to lair.
Yeah, that's what I would guess, is it's timed out so that perhaps he'll get 1 more queen out of his main, or maybe just 3 queens in total, and then he'll be able to get that relatively fast layer.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm having a hard time seeing what this build would be if it's not going to be a pretty fast layer after the speed. So the speed is definitely not going to do very much for him, except in the rare case that he was dealing with Reapers, especially such an early speed. That's what confuses me, is like the start speed right when your pool finishes is a nice timed out speed to defend, let's say, Reaper Harass on Yunsu.
Yeah.
Where your opponent is getting to your base at 4 minutes always, and he's going to be harassing you consistently until you get speed. On a map like this, the likelihood of 4GG getting to a Reaper to his base at 4 minutes is incredibly low.
As we're seeing, 4GG has not even found Jaedong yet, and it's the worst case scenario for the Terran player, just like you described. He's going to scout the wrong area again. He's not going to get to Jaedong's base until about 7 minutes, which is ludicrous.
I like that 4GG did this. He's definitely playing the map. He's not making Hellions. He made a Reaper off of his CC first build, and he's going to use the Reaper. He's going to figure out where Jaedong is doing that. And meanwhile, let's see, Jaedong's just hit 100 gas, so we'll see now if he's going to favor the layer play or not. Meanwhile, the Reaper gets into Jaedong's base. He sees the spawning pool not doing anything. So he doesn't actually know if speed was done or not. But I think he'll find out soon because there's a couple Lings running around. Sees the 2 Evo chambers, and I think he'll see the 3rd. Yeah, he'll scout the 3rd here. So 4GG in a pretty good position in terms of information, but so is Jaedong. We saw the Overlord fly into 4GG's natural, saw the 3rd command center, so both players are very aware of what the opponent is doing, and it looks like it's going to go into a very standard macro game, actually.
4GG is going to have to get out of there. He's able to, so it doesn't have to worry too much about that. And these Lings are going to start working on these rocks again. I believe these rocks actually do prevent taking that extractor based on that position, so you've got to kind of nibble away at that.
Is that a high yield extractor? Or is it just...
No, it's just regular.
Huh.
I'm not really sure what the... I'd have to ask the map maker why exactly... Oh, the Reaper goes down. That was a bit of a mistake there by 4GG.
Yeah, a little bit sloppy there. That Reaper, the interesting thing here is usually the Reaper has to go home when speed finishes because the Lings can kind of catch it.
Yeah.
On this map, until he breaks the rocks into the center, that Reaper literally never can get caught. It can always sit above the third, jump into the main, do a little bit of scouting, jump out. But with the Reaper down, now 4GG is going to be in the dark for quite a while.
Yep, there we go. The Vespene geyser has now been cleared up. I'd have to ask the designer exactly what his thought process was in blocking that off. I mean, there's got to be a reason for it in that map design rather than just dumping it there deliberately, but rocks have now been broken down, so that slowed down the acquisition of this 6th gas just a little bit. Baneling Nest is on the way up here for Jaedong. He's mining gas from 6 and doesn't have a Spire yet. No, there it goes.
Just started. Yep.
Just started.
And I think this will work out. This will time out relatively well when the 1-1 finishes, and also he'll be able to get Baneling speed. It's just a very, very macro-oriented build. We can see Jaedong has a lot of drones right now. He's clearing the gas geyser at his potential 4th. And meanwhile, 4GG with the 2 medevacs. Here we go. This is the aggression that he's been gearing up for. And this is very optimized. He skipped the Hellions. He skipped a lot of things to get this Marine medevac pressure into Jaedong's base at this early timing.
And it did the job as well. There were no Banelings ready to deal with that, and that is a lot of drones that went down to this. We're looking at 20 drones killed by that drop.
Yeah, I think Jaedong really, he needed to get some more information about what 4GG was doing to be more aware of the timing. There's a lot of things that 4GG could have done off of 3CC, and Jaedong just didn't know which one exactly it was going to be. No fast Overseer. Any Overlord scouting was a little bit delayed, or not quite as consistent as he would need.
Yeah.
And that medevac just got in and did a lot of damage. Once the mutas come out, which they should be... Yeah, they've just started. They'll be able to clean up these medevacs, no problem, and we'll kind of see an air war until both players move into the center. Neither player has broken the rocks yet, so it's basically just drops against mutas.
Yeah. Jaedong's preparing to do it. He's spread creep all the way past that. Of course, you can do that. So he does want to fight through that center corridor eventually. He just doesn't want to do it right now. 4GG has been doing a fantastic job of delaying mining here at this 3rd base. Now, finally, the Mutalisks are out. So they're going to be able to clean this drop up, and 4GG is going to lose the rest of it. Nice muta control, of course, by Jaedong. Saves that one. Doesn't take too much damage. And now he has air control. And drops on this map are going to be difficult to execute with those Mutalisks around.
Yeah, the thing... Oh, I like this. 4GG has definitely put some real thought into this map. Look at the medevac drop above Jaedong's 3rd. He's going into siege tanks,
Lovely.
And he's bringing some Marines there. I would like to have seen an SCV or 2 dropped with this, because turrets would completely solidify this high ground position. As it stands now, when these additional 4 mutas come up, Jaedong will take some losses, but he can clean this up.
Yeah. In the meantime, we're going to see an attempted 2-pronged piece of aggression, and 4GG actually pushes back immediately, saying, oh, well, no, never mind, I'm not going to be able to make my way through there on the ground. Creep coverage is far, far too good, and 4GG will have been spotted there, certainly. This little, I wouldn't even call it contained, just kind of cliff harass is annoying, certainly, but Jaedong's going to eventually have enough mutas to clean it up. He just doesn't want to invest right now and lose a couple of Mutalisks to get rid of it. He wants to wait, but he's losing a lot of mining time in the process, and 4GG, on the other hand...
Yeah, actually, what Jaedong's trying to do is break all the rocks to get there by ground. What I think Jaedong didn't realize is that there's 2 sets of rocks to get to that position.
Yeah.
He broke down the first set, he thought, okay, now I'll move in, now I'll get to this raised area, and you could see his Lings. Look at Jaedong's units in the middle. He's just lost. Not the game, but mentally, like, he doesn't know what to do with this map. His units are just kind of trolling around the center, trying to get to 4GG's base, trying to get to this drop. Meanwhile, 4GG has just sieged up above that 3rd, and he's ticking away.
Yeah, 4GG has obviously prepared. In fact, like, so, there's the GG, and he just drops out immediately. I think we're seeing a fairly significant disparity in preparation here between some of the players. Millenium has obviously planned and has come up with some great builds for these maps. Jaedong in particular, as you said, he looked a bit lost. He didn't really have a solid build prepared here.
Yeah, I think 4GG, I mean, everything you said is right. I don't know if I have much more to contribute to that. Everything that 4GG did was so calculated and so tailored to the map. It was really a pleasure to see. CC first doesn't bother with those early Marines because you don't need them. Those rocks are going to keep you safe. Make that early Reaper because that's literally the only way you can scout. And then don't get Hellions. Hellions are to keep you safe from Speedlings. You don't have to worry about Speedlings on that map. Go straight into Mass Marines, Stim, Combat Shields, upgrades, Medevacs. That gives you a double Medevac drop that was hitting Jaedong's base around the 10-minute mark. That's not a thing. In a regular map, if you're going to make that Medevac drop hit at 10 minutes, you are cutting a lot of corners beforehand. You are leaving yourself very vulnerable. Your opponent's creep spread is usually out of control. They have total map control because you didn't make Hellions. But on that map, it didn't matter.
No.
What 4GG did made so much sense.
Yeah, it was fantastic to watch, really, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
it's a bit of a shame that Jaedong didn't go for what you suggested in the first place, which was more of a two-base Muta style. Because I think if those Mutalisks had been out a lot quicker, and he'd been able to gain that map control, he could have prevented that position. He could have started to harass his opponents, slowed down that kind of attempt, before 60 Marines and 3 tanks come out.
Yeah, or even if it's not 2-base Muta, fast 3-base, delay that speed. It was like Jaedong had decided he was going to play a game as if this map was any other map.
And it's
with
not.
this. Yeah, and it's not. It's just not. You have to adjust when you're playing in the SHOUTCraft Clan Wars because these maps are not your ordinary maps.
And let's be honest, I mean, Jaedong understands that perhaps more than anyone in Clan Wars because of his extensive Brood War experience. There were weird maps in Brood War that you had to deal with. There were weird maps in Pro League that he had to deal with. He had to deal with the fact that Arkanoid was there. It was Arkanoid. I keep calling it Arcturus for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, it goes by the name of Arkanoid, and it's a crazy map with a bunch of rocks. It's the kind of thing that for Pro League you do prepare, but I suppose the problem with being Jaedong is you're the star player, you're focused on all sorts of huge tournaments and events. Katowice's coming up. You got things like WCS, of course. He's been knocked out of WCS now, so perhaps he was preparing for Katowice, all that kind of stuff. And I believe I heard that he might be sent to the open bracket over there. I mean, it would make logical sense. So maybe that's been his focus. And like you said, he didn't really seem to know what he was doing there. And as a direct result, 4GG, who had clearly prepared, was able to take a fairly easy victory.
Yeah. I'd like to hope to see more of Jaedong's games, and maybe he'll take it a little more seriously next time.
Well, you know, I don't necessarily blame him. It's certainly a small event, but as EG, you're kind of relying on someone like Jaedong to anchor your team and make sure that you pick up wins. And so far, Jaedong is 0-2 in the Clan Wars, so it's not really what you would have expected. If there were liquid bets for this event, I don't think anyone would have really bet that. But there you go. So, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we could have our potential final game, but it's going to be JYP versus Adel Scott, and I think that EG certainly has a clear advantage on this map, particularly since JYP has won already on New Polaris Rhapsody, and he did so very, very well against Trap of all people. And Adel Scott? Well, I'm not sure if he's entirely up to the challenge. We're going to find out after the break, though. Will Millenium close it out 4-1, or will EG begin the comeback? We'll be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to EG versus Millenium, and EG find themselves down 3-1 in the opposite position that they were in their first Clan War, which they were able to take confidently over IM. 4-1, which I think a lot of people were very surprised by, and now Millenium brings it, and they have brung it. I've got to say, I think of the 2 teams so far that I've been most impressed with in terms of preparing for the map, we've had the Aussies, and then we've had Millenium, who have obviously prepared a build for each map.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the advantages of being maybe a little less busy. Is you have the time to make preparations for something like this. As a player who's been traveling all over the world for the last month or 2 or 3, they might not want to spend so much time looking at just one map for one game. But when you're not doing that, every game matters. When you're trying to establish yourself as a player, when you don't have all these international opportunities, you want to make sure that when you play a game and people watch it, you're going to make it damn good. And Millenium is really showing that they're taking the time to look at these maps and get prepared and make the best games that they can.
Yeah, and it's one of the weird strengths of some of the lesser-known teams in this tournament. Some people questioned why I'd, invite the Australians in an impromptu clan, why I'd bring in people like MYE or IVD. Well, because this is the kind of event where those teams really want to prove themselves, and they're actually willing to prepare significantly. And, if you want an example of a player that made a name for himself in this event, you look no further than XL5 Pig, who played phenomenal games in his clan war.
Yeah, I believe he took out Qxc. Is that right?
He almost took out Qxc. He did beat Stardust, though.
Stardust, that's the one that he actually beat.
Yeah,
right.
he played, on this map, in fact, a very innovative Hydra drop style, which worked very well, and then he attempted a combo of Roach Hydra Nidus drop. So he dropped and Nidus, and it almost beat Qxc, almost. The weird thing about that map is that I think Qxc only held on because of the way the map was designed. It actually has a low ground main and a high ground natural, which allowed Qxc to kind of hold his high ground and trade well. If it hadn't been, that would have been so strange.
What map?
It was Wrecking Ball, which we have yet to see in this war so far.
Yeah, we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. But New Polaris Rhapsody, which is the map I think most people are more familiar with because it was actually used in Red Bull Battlegrounds New York. That's not a real word. Wow, let's try again. New York, not New York. And suddenly I lose half my US audience. My apologies. Regardless, we have to the northwest position, who I actually believe has been casting for Millenium up to this point and is now playing in the style and orange trunks. Playing Protoss, he is Millenium's Adelscott versus his opponent to the southeast position. Very, very strong Korean player from Evil Geniuses in the red trunks. Playing Protoss. It's JYP.
JYP is one of those players that I've actually kind of forgotten about in a little bit. I haven't seen him as much in international tours. I haven't really seen him in WCS. And I don't know. I'm trying to remember like the last significant event. And maybe this sounds dumb because he actually played in something not too long ago, but I haven't seen JYP's name up on the podium the way that I remember him being, let's say, a year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, the strange thing about JYP is I think the most notable thing he's done lately was, I believe, DreamHack Winter, where he beat his teammate Jadon 2-1. And people were very surprised by that.
And Edel actually going for the proxy pylon. So this is the third pylon as proxied. He's got 3 probes on both gas geysers. That's not in the lava area. So the lava area is only this low ground in the very center.
Yes.
Right?
That is very true. Yeah, so he's okay putting it there. And Adelscott going for the proxy Stargate over here.
Right. So that'll be an Oracle that'll get into his base. And meanwhile, JWP 3 probes on both gases as well. Adds a second gateway. And JYP is going to get into Adelscott's base and start scouting. And I think will he know? I think he should recognize.
I think he's got to know. There's so much gas being mined, and he's got to say, well, something's proxied. You've put something somewhere on the map.
Yeah.
What would you actually do? Well, personally, if I were to go for anything here, it would be Stargate. And the reason is this little rock wall here. It gives you a nice little escape from stalkers on the ground.
Oh, that probe's going to die, I think.
No, I think Adelscott might make... No, he's not going to make it. We're going to see our first real death. I'm celebrating. The probe will die.
Oh, wow, it actually... Yep, probe's dead.
I'm so happy.
And the Stargate makes a lot of sense, too, because it's very hard for the ground units to get around.
Exactly.
I seem to remember... Oh, Stalker's moving around, does not see... And the Mothership Core is not at home, actually.
Oh, my.
Oh, my God, look at JYP's base. The Stalker is trapped.
Ah! Well, it's in a good turret position, I suppose.
Oh,
but
no, JYP, what are you doing?
Oh, he's going to get back here immediately. I can't believe... Will Adelscott seriously take this for Millenium? That is completely unexpected. So far, the Oracle has killed 5 workers. It's going to take a 6th, and then it's going to have to get out, but...
And all the lost mining time, too. JYP is not mining any gas. Look at his income. He's got 40 minerals. Like, his warp gate's going to finish, and he's trying to rally to Adelscott's base, but...
Oh, he just moved commanded past the Oracle. There's another one coming in. He didn't expect a double Oracle.
But Adelscott didn't ever start warp gate, and he doesn't have a mothership core.
Oh, God, what is happening here? Well...
I don't think Adelscott can defend this pressure. I don't know. Are oracles good against stalkers? I don't think they are. I don't think a zealot. Can zealots attack mothership cores, TotalBiscuit?
They can kind of use harsh language and shout in their vain. That's not going to work, though. This is really weird now. We are in the earliest base trade in StarCraft 2's history.
We've just entered the Twilight Zone. That's actually what this map is. So...
Militia Core's going to die. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And he knew that was going to happen. But JYP has Stalkers, which don't die very fast to Oracles. There's still a Mothership Core here.
He had a 13-worker lead. He made him... JYP lost so much mining time, but he didn't get Warp Gate, and he didn't add additional gateways. And so all of the damage that he did early on just goes to waste. Even though JYP even had a Stalker stuck in his main. We look at JYP's main right now, it's pathetic.
It's still there.
12 probes and there's a stuck Stalker. There's only 2 gateways, but it's enough. He's going to be able to clean this up. Adol Scott has basically nothing left. He's lost almost all of his probes now. JYP taking a significant probe lead at this point, and Adol Scott has just started Warp Gate.
GG! JYP, such a damn hero. Like you said, starting Warp Gate at 8 minutes 35 when they have no probes. It's a bold move, Cotton, but that was really strange. That's really the only way I can describe that. Usually, when you've taken that much damage, there's no way, but JYP's strategy seemed to be ignore everything and just go for this one base regular Stalker build and hope that he's invested too much in tech to defend it?
JYP was like, alright, Warp Gate is finished. Warp in 2 Stalkers at home. Run them across the map. Because he had to defend the Oracle. He couldn't offensively warp them in. I think maybe all but 2 Stalkers were built out of regular gateways.
Yep.
And maybe Adol Scott's brain exploded when the Oracle went into JYP's base. He was like, oh my god, the Stalker is stuck. Look at all this mining time. No tech. I can win this game. I'm going to win this game. And then he just fell asleep for 25 seconds, didn't start Warp Gate, and that was it.
Well, that was just bizarre. Strangely enough, in an 8-minute game, we actually saw something die in the lava, which was unexpected to say the least. We've seen actually quite long games on this map most of the time, but JYP is now 2 for 2 in PvPs on this map, so he is gonna hold the ground here for Evil Geniuses and put them right back in it. There's still a game down, though.
Yeah, it's not over.
No.
Oh, yeah. For some reason, I was like, oh, well, we're done. I guess I'll do some other stuff now. But no, we are not.
The next one, it's going to be a TVT. And this, I think, is going to be a true test for EG, because they're going up against a ridiculously strong player in the form of Daishi, and they're sending Xenocider out to do it.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Xenocider is sometimes very, very good, and more recently, not as very, very good. Meanwhile, Daishi has been dominating, took a commanding, I think it was 4-1 in his WCS group? Anyway,
yeah,
he went first in his WCS group, defeating the likes of San, who is pretty damn good. Yeah. So I think this is definitely a series favored for Millenium, but the map is the X factor.
It's Wrecking Ball.
As we've seen through this clan war time and time again, if you prepare for the crazy map, anything can happen.
Everything is happening so far in this series. It's been so odd. And I'm hoping that Wrecking Ball brings us some weirdness as well. We'll find out after the break, folks. You're watching SHOUTCraft Clan Wars, brought to you by MLG TV. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a very strange SHOUTCraft Clan War indeed between EG and Millenium. And we're going to have a TBT here on Wrecking Ball.
You know, TVT is kind of like an endangered species in StarCraft 2.
Is that true?
When I show up to IEMs, I beg them. I'm like, you know what, guys, just let me do something if there's a TVT. And it's not like, let me do something when there's a TVT. It's like, if the fates align and 2 Terrans find each other on one of these maps, please let me say something about it. So I'm quite pleased that there is a TVT in this clan war.
Well, in this case, ideally hope that it's a good one for you there, because it does certainly seem like an unfortunate situation where we're just not seeing that many TBTs these days. I mean, it's my favorite mirror as well. I think it's any sane man's favorite mirror.
So this actually reminds me of a Brood War map. Is it based off of a Brood War map?
I think it might be.
Okay, that seems likely. Maybe not an exact copy, but it certainly seems reminiscent. I'm reminded of the low ground main and the fact that the third can be attacked from behind. Those both remind me quite a bit of a particular Brood War map, although I can't remember what it's called. Oh, and there are the neutral missile turrets, which was definitely not in Brood War.
Yes, those are not part of a Brood War map at all. There's actually a couple of odd things in the middle of the map as well that you can't see because they haven't been scouted yet, but there's a couple of neutral Terran add-ons which haven't been used for anything yet. I think they were just put in there for whimsy, but you can actually put something on them. I'm not really sure what you would do with them. I think there's a reactor, and there is a tech lab at kind of opposite sides of the middle.
So here's your build, is probably, instead of 12 barracks, 12 gas, you're going 12 gas, 12 barracks, and you're building your barracks on the reactor to go into what is probably the fastest / most economical 2 Reaper opening you could do.
And you know what? We're not seeing either player do that, and that disappoints me a huge amount here.
Maybe when I play in the Clan War, I'll get this map.
Well, Complexity does have a match. They have got one scheduled, so here's hoping that you end up with Wrecking Ball. However, let's introduce our player, shall we, to the south position in the red trunks for Team Millenium. Once again on match point. Playing Terran, of course, it's Daishi. Absolute monster right now, who is tearing up WCS EU. Versus his opponent to the north position. A man that still has a lot to prove. In the blue trunks from North America, playing Terran, is E.G. Xenocider. So we're going to see a really fast factory here. Xenocider did go for the gas before barracks.
And I think, actually, they both did. I'm not sure what the variance was here and why the... Because you can see that the builds are slightly different.
Slightly off, yeah, by about 5 seconds.
But they're not different enough to indicate that they actually did, like, a different order of things. Yeah. I think maybe one of them was either a little more precise, or one of them cut an SCV to get their gas slightly earlier or something. But we can basically assume that the builds are effectively the same.
So where do you go from this position? Oh, actually, are we seeing a second gas from Xenocider? All right, well, that's indicative of one thing.
Right, so we're probably going to see Xenocider go into Fast Cloak Banshees, which is about the most standard thing ever in this matchup. And I think Daishi may be trying to play towards the map here by favoring this Marine Hellion medevac. So normally when you do... Wait, there's no elevator spots. Hold on.
No, I do not believe so.
So normally when you do Marine Hellion elevator, it's called an elevator because you have to go up into the main.
Yes, not down.
On this map, of course, you're going down into the main, which may be significant enough. Oh, but Xenocider scouts it. There is literally no way at all that this should do any damage to Xenocider. He has all the information he needs. Daishi is completely committed to this path now. He's on one gas first. Basically what Xenocider can do is build 2 Cloak Banshees in a row. Constant Marine production makes Hellions. And he's going to delay his second command center for a little bit because he needs that extra money for the Marines and Hellions. Send the first Cloak Banshee to Daishi's base. That will force Daishi to keep his Viking at home and build missile turrets. And then use the second Banshee plus Marines and Hellions to be safe at home. And that's how I would expect this to all play out. Meanwhile, Daishi absolutely needs to do as much damage as possible. And how he's going to do that is difficult because he's been scouted.
Well, he's going to make his way over. The Banshee is not going to see the drop or the Hellions, which I suppose is nice. And it is less of an elevator play and more of a, let's just bring them into the base out of sight of our opponent. And Xenocider currently hasn't seen it.
This is... I think Xenocider, in his head, you just make the assumption. You're like, okay, my opponent's going to go down the ramp, because that's the logical way for him to do it, because it's so far away everywhere else. And so it takes him completely off guard. Look at Daishi's units just cleaning up.
Absolutely destroying this. And, Xenocider's just got to keep holding until his Banshee comes out. I think he might be okay. He's going to be forced to pull, certainly here. And the Banshee for Xenocider is already in the base doing damage. There's been a scan put in, but one Viking is not enough. The Banshee is now able to stop that, but Daishi is going to continue to attack, move his drop over to the side here.
And right now, Xenocider has the advantage in terms of tech and I would say just general units, but Daishi is out multitasking him.
Yeah.
The Banshee in Daishi's Daishi's main is doing good damage, but at the same time, Xenocider has got to keep defending against this Marine medevac drop in his main. He has to keep everything alive. He has to get compensation because he lost. Sorry. Daishi is definitely very far ahead. I just
ridiculously far ahead. The control of Daishi with this has been ludicrous. I mean, he didn't do a lot of initial... Oh! It actually happened!
Oh my god!
Well, I don't think it's necessarily enough to put Xenocider back in, but it helps.
No, and it was so funny. Oh my god.
Zeta.
Oh,
No! Oh! I think he did that on purpose.
Oh man, that was funny. I think he was looking for the medevac.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, maybe it's sitting out here, and then he saw the missile turrets, and he's like, maybe it's not sitting out here.
Alright, so even regardless of that, it's safe to say that Daishi is very, very far ahead here.
Yeah, definitely. If we look at the workers lost, 14-5, and because Daishi was opening with that one gas, he was able to get his CC earlier? I don't know, that doesn't really make sense. Because usually when you open one gas, you have to commit so much to eBay turret. I think it was really just... Daishi did a good job of putting the pressure on Xenocider. Xeno was not able to take full advantage of his Banshee in Daishi's main, and he lost a ton of workers.
Yeah.
And it really all came down to not seeing this drop come. Because when you think about how long it takes, the medevac goes, it deposits all the Marines, then it flies away, and then gets all the Hellions, and then comes back. There's a huge window there where you could easily force an engage on half of the units in your base. And just because Xeno didn't have vision, he wasn't able to make that fight happen when it needed to.
Well, we had two fairly inconsequential engagements on both sides. Xenocider continues to play one base. He attempted to do more damage with his Banshees. He got another SCV, and that was about it. The drop got shut down without any real damage being done either. But at this point, Xenocider is showing no signs whatsoever expanding. He is trying to take full air control with double Viking production, and he's going to push with Marines, tanks, his Banshees, and hope to kill Daishi.
I think this is the best decision Xenocider could make. It's just that he didn't have a lot of decisions to choose from.
No.
He had a number of decisions to choose from, and all of them were bad. And this is the best one. He was too far behind economically to try and stage a macro comeback. And so it's time to just throw it down, make this one push as strong as you can. And this is a very strong push. As soon as he takes and establishes air control, those two Banshees will basically be able to clean up. As long as he can keep one or two tanks alive, kill the turret in the bunker, there's not too much else stopping it, but he does not want to lose anything to the Widowmine. I think he noticed that it was there. No, he must not have, because the Raven would come in. Now he's bringing the Raven in.
There we go. I think he's almost accidentally going to see it, and that worked out fairly well for him. And now he's set up a contain. Daishi's going to try and engage here. There's Ravens on both sides.
And it's basically it's going to come down to, if Daishi maintains air control, he will be able to stabilize and he'll be in a great position. If Xeno gets air control, the game will basically be over. Since Daishi is going into mech, he doesn't have an armory. He has no way to attack those Banshees except for Vikings.
Oh man, Xenocider's contain here is kind of ridiculous. Double bunker in front of triple tank. Xenocider getting in really close here because he says, hey, you know what, I can risk it. And the Hellions are going to take a couple of shots here. In comes the air control of Xenocider. And are we going to see an ace match coming in here? It's looking quite likely at the moment as Xenocider continues to push forward. Nice PDD from Daishi. Great timing as the torpedoes were firing off there from the Viking. So that was pretty effective for him, but the natural's compromised at this point. And it's a high ground natural with tanks.
Here we go. This is the final battle.
Can it happen?
If Xeno takes this fight, he'll be able to push on and win.
He's gonna do it! He's gonna do it! He's done it!
Xeno's gonna take it! Look at how many units he has left! What does Daishi have? He's got 2 Hellions, a tank, and a Viking. There's still a Banshee out. The Banshee has a lot of Vikings supporting it if they flew up, but he doesn't need them. He's just gonna take the ground fight, sacks the Banshee, doesn't need that either, killing more and more and more SCVs.
Oh man, that was cool. Xenocide is actually gonna take it, and he's gonna force the ace match here in this clan war. Considering the amount of damage he took, that was unbelievable.
When did Daishi find time to build a 3rd command center?
Apparently that wasn't a good idea.
2 more Vikings come in, 1 siege tank. Daishi just dropping mules, trying to get whatever extra income he can. 1 siege tank comes out for Daishi. It's kind of doing funny things, flying around. Picks off a Viking. Might get the siege tank, but I don't think it's gonna matter.
GG!
Xeno takes it.
Takes it to the ace match. What a fantastic game. Well, most TVTs don't play out that way, so I have to ask, Kevin, were you disappointed by that or thrilled?
I was hoping it would be a little bit longer, but it was quite interesting and it was exciting to watch, so I am happy. I guess the main blunder from Daishi was probably that fast 3rd command center. I think without committing to that, he would have had a lot more Viking. I don't even know when he built it. Like, I saw it flying back into his main. I was like, what the hell? Like, when did he even where did he even build it? I didn't even see it, but that extra money committed into earlier siege tanks, Hellions, and more Vikings, I think would have made all the difference. But he probably assumed that his opponent would expand, because that's kind of the reasonable thing to do, and Xeno was having none of it. No expansions for him.
No, I think a little bit too much greed perhaps there from Daishi, and it was unfortunate for him, but I gotta say, Xenocide's push was great. His contain was rock solid, absolutely wonderful, and he made the right call. And as you said, he didn't really have a lot of choices, but the choice that he did take, he executed very well.
Yeah, I think he definitely caught Daishi in a place that he wasn't expecting and pushed through and executed quite well.
Man.
So ace match, right?
Yeah. So we're going to be taking a few minutes for this, folks, because first, of course, we have to flip a coin to find out what server it's going to be on. And after we know what the server is, we will see who the players are. Teams have got 5 minutes to decide on their ace. So we will be taking a break in the process, and then we'll be going to the ace match. And I mean, you would think it was probably going to be 4GG versus Jaedong again, but can't be 100% sure of that. We might see Millenium send someone else.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe JYP came out for EG.
Maybe.
But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. And it'll depend a lot on this map, right? Which I don't know if we want to talk about now, but
we certainly could. We could talk about it a little bit. Of course, it's going to be Keru, which is, again, one of the less insane maps. It's got a bunch of very interesting third bases, and in fact, we saw some rather interesting cheese involving cannon rushing on this map.
So, I don't know. It'll depend a bit on... I'm sure somebody on both teams has definitely considered Keru, and probably the teams will be deliberating now, deciding who's really the best person for it, and we'll just have to see where that goes.
Oh my. Well, we're going to find out in a few minutes, folks. These guys have got quite a bit of time to decide, so we're going to give them that time, and we're going to take a short break. When we come back, the ace match of Millenium versus Evil Geniuses. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to SHOUTCraft Clan Wars. It's got a bit crazy. We're in the ace match. It's going to be on Keru, and the players are going to be 4GG versus Xenocider. Another TVT.
4GG versus Xenocider. Right. That is half of what I expected to happen.
Yes. Xenocider was an interesting ace choice.
Yeah, I would... Let's see. So, other likely people would be JYP, Suppy, Jaedong. Am I missing somebody that they might use for ace?
Don't think so.
Okay. So, as... I think it's...
Huck, maybe.
Oh, yeah, and Huck. I think it's relatively clear at this point that Jaedong probably would not want to play ace. And so I'm actually a little surprised they didn't use Huck. But I'm...
I think I know why they didn't use Huck. And that's because Millenium got Holden server for the Ace match. So Huck is pretty notorious for not wanting to play cross-server.
Oh, yeah,
so that's
that could
probably
be.
why, I would imagine. And Xenocider doesn't seem to care. And since I would also imagine EG's thinking, well, there's no way they're going to send out... Well, the two players Millenium are going to send out are either Daishi or 4GG, both of which are Terran. So, cross-server, TVT... As in your pro opinion, how much difference does that really make?
TVT
NA to EU.
is probably the best Terran matchup to play cross-server. Just because against Banelings, playing cross-server is kind of a nightmare, and against Storm and Force Fields, cross-server is actually horrible. At least in TVT, besides the early Banshees, there's not too much you have to deal with, especially if you favor mech. Marine versus Marine battles can be a little tricky with lag, but I definitely feel like TVT is probably the least affected. But Xeno lives on the East Coast. If his connection to Europe is anything like mine, there's literally no difference at all.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've got to imagine that was why. Although, it does still surprise me they didn't send one of their Koreans out, because in that case, we would have had a situation where we would have had to go NA, and everyone would have kind of been equal there. But I got to imagine that's why they didn't send Huck or indeed anyone else, and Xenocider, I think, is a solid choice there, but Xenocider versus 4GG is, in theory, a bit of a mismatch in favor of Millenium. I don't think that's unfair to say.
But so was Xenocider against Daishi.
True.
And so I don't think we can count Xenocider out,
no,
especially, again, with the maps. Perhaps if Daishi hadn't lost his medevac to the neutral turrets, we would have seen that game go significantly differently, because he would have had a lot more information about what Xenocider was doing, and he probably wouldn't have gone so macro heavy. He would have noticed that my opponent is just one basing, and when your opponent is one basing, you take certain precautions that you normally wouldn't otherwise. But with the neutral turrets killing that medevac, all of a sudden Daishi was very much in the dark, and we saw the game swing in Xeno's favor. So we're going to have to see what he can do with this map, which player has better prepared for the mystery that is Neo Keru.
A mystery indeed. I believe this has been slightly modified since last time. I think it's called Neo Keru because the map may have slightly redesigned it to prevent the 2-pylon cannon wall-off that was actually used as a rush play on this map the last time, and I have a feeling he didn't want that to happen again, so I think that's why.
What's the gimmick here? This map looks remarkably standard.
It's not much of a gimmick, really. This is actually one of our most standard maps, and I believe, if I recall correctly, it's the potential third bases are the more interesting components of it. Outside of that, though, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so one of the third bases is very far away, and seemingly difficult to hold, and the other third base can be attacked from the low ground. So, but a lot of the time, TVT doesn't even get to a third base. We've seen a number of games end either with Banshee pressure or kind of as a direct result of how the Banshee pressure went. Xenocider going for gas first, and 4GG is going to put down a barracks. Is this a Reaper map? I would say 100% no, this is not a Reaper map. There's only one entrance. It looks remarkably like Belshir, in that kind of if you control your ramp, you control all the space that a Reaper might jump up. So we'll probably see 4GG go 15 gas. Or... oh, he's scouting on 13. That's what he's doing.
So, let's introduce our players and see what they decide to do. The aces for both teams, ladies and gentlemen. To the northeast position in the blue trunks, playing Terran. Millennium's 4GG. With the much later gas on 15 there, versus his opponent, who certainly did not go for a late gas at all. To the southwest position in the red trunks, playing Terran. It's EG Xenocider.
So, 15 gas, both players scouting versus gas first. Both players should have this, like the first 6 to 8 minutes or so, down by rote. There's really going to be very little decision making that hasn't been done before the game started. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Xeno didn't scout early enough to see his opponent's gas timing, which is relevant, but not by a huge amount. Basically, because the Marine was out, he knows it's not gas first. So the only thing that it could be is 13 gas or 15 gas, because nobody goes 1 Rax expand in this matchup. And so Xeno just has to make the decision: does he make a second Banshee after the first one, or does he make a Raven? And that will be the main kind of strategic adjustment. Besides that, everything else is going to be the same. He's going to build a lot of Marines. He's not going to be too worried about early aggression or any like weird Banshee timings. Nothing's going to hit him super early, basically, is the thing.
Yeah. That seems like a damn good assessment that I can't add anything to whatsoever. That's as simple as that. Like, yeah, that's very detailed, which I suppose is to be expected when you get a pro player Terran casting yet another TVT here.
Yeah, I just realized we had 2 TVTs
Indeed.
in the same day.
What a magical wonderland we have here in Clan Wars for you.
Am I dreaming?
It's a possibility. You never know. You're gonna get pinched, you wake up,
Jenny,
nothing but
me.
the 7th PvP in a row.
Ow! No, I'm not dreaming.
It's good to see, isn't it? It's, it is nice to see TVT. It's such a good mirror with so much potential, and lately we have not seen much of it.
I think it is the best mirror.
I think so.
Perhaps I'm biased.
No, I think you're just sane and human.
So, right now we see literally the most standard gas first Banshee opening that is around. Xeno getting the reactor. He'll probably start his Raven soon. He'll put the barracks on the reactor and transition into Marine tank. He builds the CC on the high ground just to be a little bit safer. There's a couple 15 gas timings that can threaten a low ground CC, but he doesn't have to worry about any of them when he puts it on the high ground. We'll see a tech lab on the factory very soon. Notice he does get the Raven, and this is again what I'm talking about. If Xeno knew 100% his opponent was 15 gas, he can skip the Raven in favor of a second Banshee, and it gives him stronger aggressive options without taking too much away from his potential future timings. Getting the Raven means he's safer. It gives him like a more average build in case his opponent went 13 gas and a fast Banshee. But in this particular situation, it's not going to be quite as strong right now.
Well, how good is Xenocider's Banshee control? It's been okay up to this point, but he is now committing deep into the base, which can be a big risk with 2 scans available and a Viking. Even a Raven. There it is. That's not going to kill it, though.
No, but you have to force the scans.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. He might... Oh, no. Why would you uncloak?
Well, he just wasted a bunch of energy there, because, of course, cloaking does take an initial energy investment, so that Banshee
is dead.
Dead.
It's gonna die. There's no, unless 4GG falls asleep, which he's not going to.
No.
There's no way for it to escape. There's no way for it to get past. And this is wasteful. You would, as Xenocider, you don't necessarily expect to do damage in that you're not like, I'm definitely gonna kill SCVs or I'm definitely gonna kill Marines. But you, at the very least, want to have like a bare minimum amount of damage that you do. And 2 scans is really, if you're not getting at least 2 scans in this gas first versus 15 gas, you're not getting enough compensation for your Banshee.
Right, well, Daishi floated his barracks over here, so that gives us a fairly obvious indication that he has no intention whatsoever of building any kind of Marines. He's building a lot of Hellions. He's actually getting a... I said Daishi, didn't I? 4GG is what I'm talking about there. He's getting a much... Yeah, he's alright. Yeah, no, he's okay for the moment. He's getting a much later cloaking field here.
Boom. Alright, cool. So, one thing that's important now is 4GG knows that Xeno has the Raven. Sometimes players will skip it. And this is probably going to make his Banshee a little bit less effective. But it really depends when it hits. And actually, I think Xenocider is going to favor that same style of timing that we saw him do last game. Notice the reactor on the starport. He has no upgrades coming for his bio, and he does have 1 Banshee. He would have really like to keep that second Banshee alive. I think he was definitely intending to keep it home so he could use it with his follow-up. And here's the Cloak Banshee in from 4GG, just trying to keep Xeno at home. He's not trying to bait out scans or anything. He's just trying to keep Xeno's air units stuck on defense.
Man, 4GG sharp. Gets out of there with 1 hit point left on that Hellion. Very quick reaction there. Xenocider hoping to catch him out. Didn't happen. Banshee didn't do a huge amount. The SCV's been taken with the army. It's like, I don't want to go. Being dragged along, but the Banshee is now coming around the side here for 4GG, and there's nothing to defend it.
Yeah. One Banshee is going to get caught. That's going to go down immediately. But the other Banshee in Xenocider's natural is going to do... Yeah. And I think what Xeno's sending some Vikings home, and the rest of his units are going for the push. This is, again, Xeno is basically all in, except now instead of being on 1 base, he's on 2 bases. He's lost a lot of workers here. He has no transition. Stim has not started. It's 11 minutes and 40 seconds. He has to make this attack come to fruition.
Well, let's see if he can make that happen. The tanks are deployed. There's a lot of Hellions here. The Marines set up against these Hellions as well. Tanks now deployed. There's just so many Hellions, though, and 4GG is able to move in, flank both of those tanks, and eventually kill them. There are a few more Marines coming in as well, and 4GG brings his Banshee back in an attempt to defend this. There's a few too many Hellions. I don't think Xenocide is breaking this. Oh, hang on a minute. Landed Vikings. He's still got a tank alive at the back and a second tank, and the bunkers are still going up. No. No. Surely not.
I don't think Xeno is going to break through, but he is going to kill a number of SCVs here. If Xeno... The problem was that so many of Xeno's Marines were not with the fight. There were about 8 Marines that were out of position.
SCV surround kills both tanks in a display of unusual.
Yeah. 4GG is being... I think he's feeling particularly threatened by these bunkers. Perhaps expecting more units on the follow-up here, but Xeno really doesn't have much back home. The thing now is that the position has equalized in a lot of regards, but it's definitely still favored for 4GG.
I'm not 100% sure how 4GG only lost 1 SCV in that scenario, considering he pulled his entire natural to fight against bunkers and tanks, and yet he only lost 1 worker.
He's got special workers, man.
Apparently he does. Now, things have stabilized for both players a little bit, but 4GG is a command center up at this point, whereas Xenocider is adding on 3 more barracks.
And that's really the critical difference between these two players' position right now, is 4GG is going to immediately be able to start mining at his 3rd base, and Xenocider is immediately going to try and get stim and do things on the map. He's just too far behind in terms of his transition in order to make this 5 barracks work out, I think. Perhaps better would have been to add a command center behind that push, especially when both players traded down so many units, or at least when his stim was so late. It just feels very awkward for him to try and go into 5 racks with his stim and shield so late.
It does seem a bit weird, doesn't it? I mean, Stim's not even going to be done before 15 minutes, which is ridiculously late. Combat Shield has just started. Is Xenocider really going to attempt to get aggressive without Combat Shields? It looks like he wants to posture on the map at least.
Yeah, and he's basically forced... He's forced to. He really is. He's on 2 bases. The 3rd command center is extremely late. Maybe he knows about 4GG's 3rd. No, he doesn't. And so basically what he's going to do is whatever he can, because that's his only option. Oh, is this going to be a base trade? That would be fantastic.
It's looking that way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although, yeah, I don't know. 4GG is surely going to go back, but...
Is 4GG... Oh, Xeno just going to his main. Oh,
yeah.
He's going to set up a siege. So what he's going to do...
Nice.
Yeah, he's going to go into 4GG's natural. He's going to kill as much as he can. And then the siege tank... No, he needs to pull back. He needs to pull his bio back to support the 4 siege tanks that he put there. He can't let Hellions clean up the siege tanks. He really needed to get... If he could put his bio in front of those tanks that were in back and kill the tanks, that would have been better. Now Xeno inside of 4GG's main, but...
Not going to do much. Like, he's not really done a huge amount of damage. A lot of Hellions did die to the tanks, which is really strange, and Xenocide is actually keeping up on supply. In fact, he does... What on earth? Xenocider has 61 workers? When the hell did that happen?
Well, look at his natural. 32 out of 24.
Yeah. And we
He's
also...
going...
actually saw 4GG lost quite a few SCVs in that attack, more than I thought he did.
Yeah. The bio and the natural did a fair amount of damage, but I don't know. Xeno's position is just super weird. He really needs to get that third down. The SCVs at his natural are really not being efficient, and I don't know.
Oh, wow. I think 4GG's just found that army, and which is a bit weird. A single Marine comes in right there. He had, I mean, 4GG's tank advantage is ridiculous. It's 10 tanks onto 3. I'm quite surprised 4GG didn't directly engage and crush Xenocider's army right then and there. He decided not to, and Xenocider is now going to try and take his third base. Air control now in favor of 4GG as well.
I think 4GG is overestimating Xenocider's army a little bit here, or perhaps just playing a little bit safer. It looks like he's now posturing around, trying to find an opening where he can make a push happen.
Well, if Xenocider's Xenocider's tanks are not deployed, this is going to be pretty ugly. There's a lot of Marauders here, though. If somehow Xenocider can get into the middle of those tanks, that'll be pretty dangerous. A big salvo comes up. Can Xenocider make it happen? He's going to make it happen. The Hellions go down. All the tanks are going to be decimated right here by Xenocider as he pushes this whole thing back. 4GG loses 10 tanks.
TotalBiscuit, what are we watching? What is happening?
We're watching a pretty cool clan war by the looks of it.
I really
this
have
is just
no idea.
Weird.
He crushed that army. Xeno was just like, oh, look, bye, see ya.
4 tanks versus 10, and somehow Xenocider, it doesn't just hold it, but as you said, it crushes.
Yeah.
And now it's going to lose tanks to Cloak Banshees. No, maybe not.
He's going to make some more medevacs, more Marines, save some scans here. And even though 4GG has this forward position right now, I don't think it's going to last. This is not only 3 siege tanks. Once he can kill these Banshees here, there's really not a whole lot of firepower from 4GG.
But it's still 6 tanks on 2, whereas 4GG killed 2 tanks with those Banshees. Now there's attempted aggression against the third base, which is doing the job, and that's forced Xenocider to try and push out and kill this army, which he's going to be able to do without too much of a problem here. 4GG not really controlling. The SCVs going to their deaths here, as the remains of Xenocider's army gets killed by Vikings on the ground, and then we GG, and that didn't really play out the way that one usually expects at CBT2.
That was a pretty weird game. So he took that engagement. I mean, I don't think I could have imagined a way for it to have gone much better for Xenocider. If some part of his army had come from behind, maybe it would have gone even better for him. But even with that crushing victory, he had already lost the war because he was so far behind.
Yeah.
4GG had so much extra money from his third. His production on 5 factories with the reactor at Starport was just so much better than the 5 barracks and 1 factory, 1 starport that Xenocider had. Continues to rally too and cleans it up.
Lovely pickup on the tanks as well with those Cloaked Banshees. If it had been 4 tanks versus 6 instead of 2, then we certainly may have seen a better outcome, I think, for Xenocider. But he threw a lot of SCVs into that defense, lost them all to Hellions, and then the Vikings landed and cleaned up the rest of the bio in a shocking display of never ever happens. And that results in a 4-3 victory for Millenium. A hard fought but very strange outcome.
Yeah. And I like the maps. I think Heru might be good enough to be a ladder map or something like that. It definitely seems interesting and normal enough, which was a little disappointing to me for the Ace match. I wanted something a little weirder.
Yeah, we kind of rotate out the Ace match maps to make sure that they all get equal proportion, but it is always cool to throw in a weird one as the Ace. You know, at some point I should throw the 2v2 in as the Ace.
I like that idea.
At which point every team just quits the league straight away. It's like, sorry guys, I didn't really mean to do that, but that was a really cool war between the two of these teams. It was very evenly matched, as we expected. There were some very unexpected results. Xenocider put on a great performance, honestly, in both games, even though he ended up losing that final one.
I think Xenocider can be pretty happy with the games that he played today, and definitely will have some things to learn from his series against 4GG. Even just one map here or there, when you play against a player of 4GG's caliber, can teach you a lot. Take some time, think about those games, and work from it, improve from it, be stronger for the next match.
Certainly. Yeah, it was really good. A nice breakout performance there from Xenocider, and a really nice even game between these two, and we still see that EG kind of dominates the 2v2 format.
Yes. Although, this one was close.
Closer, certainly.
Yes, I would say that there were marginal strategic adjustments that Millenium needed to make in order to seal that victory. But well played by both teams. I don't know what your post-mortem procedure is. Do we just talk for a bit? Do you want to...
We just kind of wrap it up and, of course, allow people to know what the next few Clan Wars are going to be. And I do have some information on that for all of you. Although, do bear in mind, something is going to catch people off guard. I have no doubt about that, because on the 9th of March, the USA goes over to Daylight Savings Time, or summertime, whichever, and the EU doesn't until the end of March. So this is going to weird a lot of people out. And there is actually a Clan War the day after the Switch, which is IVD versus My Insanity, which is going to happen at 5 p.m. EST. I'm going to have to double-check as to how we're going to pull that off. I have a feeling that we'll just keep it as it is, and 5 p.m., whatever it would be on the East Coast with summertime, is going to be the time it goes up. But I will confirm that in the thread, and of course, do check out the schedule on mlg.tv/shoutcraft. And then, we've got, on the 14th, I think one that a lot of people are really looking forward to, at 5:30 EST, is going to be IM versus StarTale.
Oh yeah, that'll be sick.
Yeah,
I wonder how they'll play the 2v2. Are they gonna, like, be more ready for it? Hopefully. I think they will.
Who knows? Yeah. There's actually going to be Starbow in that one, too. We're going to see Starbow Python played as the 5th map there, so...
Oh, nice.
I'm intrigued to see how that goes. Last time Starbow didn't go so well for StarTale. They sent out Legend, and he didn't seem to know what he was doing against Crank, but hopefully they've had a bit of chance to practice. I think it's going to be a very fun in-house war between those two.
Yes.
Of course, there is one other that people should bear in mind, particularly considering you'll be playing in it, most likely. Root versus Complexity at 5 p.m. Eastern on the 17th.
Yeah. Definitely watch that.
Well, you have inside map knowledge now, so make use of it.
Yeah, I've seen... Are there more maps that you guys use, or is it's just these?
Nope, it's just this pool for the moment. We'll probably rotate some stuff out in a couple of months, but... Yeah, we want to let people learn them. And as we've seen, especially in the early Clan Wars, people had no idea what they were doing.
Yeah. Definitely a little bit of practice goes a long way. There's some of the maps just require a different approach.
That they do. Very much so. But, Qxc, thank you for casting with me today. Where can people find your stuff? What is it you do? What is your Twitter? I'm sure you can share some details.
I got this. I got it. You set me off and I'll go. Check me out on Twitter, guys. I'm at Cole_Qxc. You can check out my team at complexitygaming.com. And check out their YouTube channel, which is Complexity Live on YouTube, or just search for Complexity Qxc. You should find it. I have a whole bunch of tutorial videos, guides, all sorts of StarCraft-related stuff on there. So you can check that out. If you're a Terran player, you want to get some help, or you want to learn how to defeat Terran, you want to learn all their secrets, check that out. Also, you can find me on Facebook. Qxc is my page. And on streaming, I do twitch.tv/ColeQXC. You can check me out there. I will be streaming tomorrow at noon EST till 3:30 p.m. EST, as well as on Saturday. Just go there, watch some games. I play some ladder. I'll do some commentary on WCS here and there. And that's about all. Big thanks to you, TotalBiscuit. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Let's try and do that again sometime, especially if we've got more Terran players.
Yes, I do love me some Terrans.
Indeed. Join the club on that one. Well, and really cool results, actually. 4 games to 3, about as close as you could expect, although maybe not close in the ways that you would have expected. And Millenium is able to just eke that one out. Please do check out the schedule on the mlg.tv website. It's up to date for the next week, so let's just put it that way. There will be more stuff added in there. We've got My Insanity versus IVD, which is going to be on Monday, March the 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern on the East Coast, whatever that would happen to be once Daylight Savings Time kicks in. The lineup's there as well, and we should know IM versus StarTale's lineup by tomorrow, so I'm very intrigued to see who IM decides to send out. I actually know who StarTale's sending out, and it's very cool, but I do not know who IM is sending out as of yet. And then, of course, we'll have Complexity versus Root, and I believe we actually have our first Team Liquid match scheduled now as well. That's now on the calendar. We've finally managed to fit them in somewhere. It's going to be EG versus MVP. It's going to be on the 20th. That should be pretty fun. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and of course, big thanks to MLG. They are providing the prize pool, $60,000 in total over the next 12 months here for SHOUTCraft Clan Wars. This has been a lot of fun. Hopefully you enjoyed it. You will be able to check out the VODs over on youtube.com/TotalBiscuit, and we anticipate that they will be uploaded on the 7th, that being 7th of March on the Friday. Thanks for your support, folks. Big thanks to both teams, and congratulations to Millenium. My name has been TotalBiscuit, joined by Qxc, and we will see you next time.